Hi there and welcome. This is Jeanette Comerford and this is my Christmas series for 2018. I hope you'll join me as I share gift cards, gift tags, holiday decor, tabletop decorations, and insert pages for December daily albums. I hope that these projects will inspire you to try some on your own, to give as gifts, or to keep for yourself. Now, I know that it is quite early to be thinking about Christmas, but I feel that if I start this early, I fully enjoy creating the projects, and then when the holiday rush finally does really arrive, I have this done and I can just enjoy the season. I hope that you will enjoy these videos, and without further ado, let's get started. For day one of this series, I am creating a December daily album page, and it features this very sweet image from Whimsy Stamps. You can see that she's sort of framed up on a card, and then there's this 6x8 page that it's placed on. Now, you could go ahead and create a very simple top folded card with an oval cut in the middle, or you can step it up and create this sort of three-dimensional card that when you lift up the top, everything sort of pops up and you have snowflakes and layers that are at different dimensions. Now, if you would like to do something like this, I'm going to link to the video below of Jennifer McGuire's, because I saw her do this pop-up card, and that's sort of what inspired me to make one and then incorporate it into my December daily album. So either way, you can do a simple top folded card, or you can check out her video and create one like I did here. So I'm not going to share that part because you can watch her video. But what I'm going to do is share the coloring. Now, I really wanted to create a very vibrant, deeply contrasted coloration because the papers I chose for this project were quite dark, and I felt that the coloration had to be dark as well. So this is a very high contrast coloration. So I'm going to take you through all the steps, and I'm going to have everything listed so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to start with the second marker that you see listed there, and I'm going to place that in the areas where I'm going to want the most shadows at the end of my coloration. Then I'm going to go in with the E11 and darken that up, and you can see I am really keeping that to the very edges of her face, and this is so that I get a really high contrast between the shadows and the lightness when I'm all done. Then I'm going to take a very dark color. This is E04, and I'm going to place that very sparingly again around the edges, and this is going to really deepen up those shadows. When I've done that, I'm going to blend it out with the E11, and then I'm going to blend the E11 out with the E00. You can see I'm really just working on the tip of my marker there and making sure everything's nicely blended and leaving a lot of uncolored space in the middle of her face. Now, if any of the marker seems to go outside the lines, you just push it back in with your colorless blender. Now I can go in and fill in with my lightest color, which was the E00, and then add the cheek colors, the R00 and the R20, to give her nice rosy cheeks. And then a little bit more of a blend with the lightest marker again to make sure there is no harsh lines. So once I'm finished with the face and everything is blended nicely, I'm just going to add a layer of color with the E50, just covering all her hair with that. And then I'll put some color where I want some deep shadows with the YR31. You can see that's a little bit more yellow. And then I'm just going to leave it and let it dry because I want it completely dry before I add any more colors. In the meantime, I'm going to work on the skirt. I wanted to come as close as possible to that red that is in the beautiful papers from Whimsy. And so this is the marker combination I came up with. So I'm just working and adding the color to all the fold lines, and sometimes I'll create a few more fold lines if I feel like I want a little bit extra. And I will go along the bottom edge where her jacket sits on top of the skirt. Then I'll go in with the next color and I will blend those lines out, extending a little bit. Again, you can see I'm leaving a lot of white there. And then I'm going in with something that might be a little surprising because this is yellow green, a very dark yellow green, but it is going to add phenomenal shadows. So it may be a little scary when you're doing it at first, but once you've got that yellow green down, it's almost black. It's like a black green. When that's done, you can take your darkest marker, which is the E09, and go over that, and it blends out to a very, very sort of deep red color, and that's what gives my shadows so much contrast because of that yellow-green marker. So don't be afraid to try that out. It really makes a big difference in getting that deep, deep shadow. Then I'm going to go back in with my markers and sort of blend them out. Again, being mindful not to go over them too much. I really do want this white area that I'm filling in with the lightest marker now. I do still want that to be quite light in contrast with the shadows. Once I had that in, I did go over it a little bit with the E09 just to darken up those pleats again. And you can see that the dress looks almost like velvet. I was really happy with how this turned out. Now, I really kept working at this until it was absolutely how I wanted it to be. So I kept sort of touching up areas that needed a little bit more contrast. Here I'm going back in with that very dark YG97 pen. And once that was done, I did go back to the hair. Now that's all dry, I'm going to start drawing some strands in. So working from the areas where I want the shadows to be, I'm drawing strands of hair with that E42. Then I'm going to let that dry while I color in the hairband. And you can see I used 3 of the markers that I used for the skirt. I'm using those for the headband, keeping that darker color towards the edges of the headband. I'm going to go back into the hair now, and I'm going to add E33. This is quite dark in, if you compare it to the other markers I used, and I'm just adding it in the areas where I want some shadows, and you can see how that now makes her hair look very bright and shiny. You can see some highlights there. And that's how you do hair if you want to create these highlights. You sort of add a base color, let that dry, and then add in strands with darker markers. I'm going to work with her coat now. Again, I was trying to match the colors in that paper, so I decided to go with this sort of taupey color, sort of a brownie taupe color for her jacket. And again, same thing, keeping those darker shades concentrated right around the edges. Again, I am making sure to leave that central portion of her coat uncolored, and I'm just gradually blending in reverse with my markers and bringing that color inwards. Now, once I finished with my lighter marker here, I decided I wanted to lighten it up a little bit, so I'm using the colorless blender to do that. I decided to add a little bit of that E43 right at the edges of her hair, and again, that's just giving it a little bit more contrast. I'm going to color those stars on her jacket with YR31. And then I'm going to be coloring the fur on her jacket. And to do this, I'm using some warm gray markers, and I'm using what is called the dot technique. So you can see I'm lightly dotting the areas where I want some shadow over and over again with one color, then sort of dotting over top that color with the next marker, and then finally with the lightest marker. and that sort of blends it out so that the dots aren't so pronounced, and it gives the idea of fur. I'm going to be using those same colors just to outline her little socks here, just around the edges again. And I will go down here. This is sort of, I guess, she has, the hood has a tassel, like a large hood with a tassel on it, so I colored that in. Then I'm just going in with some reds, the same reds I used for her dress, just along some of these bands for her little socks. I think that looks really nice. I'm leaving the middle portion uncolored, and then I'll go in with the lighter red into that portion. I'm going to make some little red hair ties for her here. A few more dots on that pom-pom to make it extra fluffy. Just going to color the star on her little, I guess, her wand, and go over some of the yellow stars on her jacket again to deepen those up. And you can see I'm using this YR24 now just to deepen up those shadows even more. I'm going to work on her present. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do, like color-wise, with the present, so I decided just to sort of leave the background of the paper sort of a white, which I've sort of colored with the grays. Then to add a little bit of yellow on top of that, all those little designs on the paper, and then to make the ribbon tying the present red. And I think that sort of ties everything together nicely. You're not going to see too much of this once the card is finished, because the oval shape will be covering a little bit of that bottom portion. Finally, I'm adding some dot detail with this Uniposca white marker, and you can see how that just brings everything to life. I like dotting it over the fur as well. That gives another little layer. And then I will color these little stars that are in the background around her. I wasn't sure if I was going to sort of sponge over that, but I decided to leave that all blank. And just to make her pop up a little bit from the page, I'm outlining the entire image with some warm gray. So just a little line around it, and that just sort of sits her off the page a little bit. I decided to leave the background, the rest of the background, white. My December daily album is 6x8, so I cut out a piece of cardstock, 6x8. Then I added some pattern paper from this Whimsy paper pack, the Christmas cheer one. The top part is the glitter paper that I used to die cut the snowflakes and the Christmas word die. And I just used the leftover there on the page. Once I put this pop-up card on top of it, you're never going to know that there's holes there. Here you can see all those pretty snowflakes. You can see how they're adhered on the different layers that are in this pop-up card, and that really gives it a very, very sweet effect. I think this is such a fun thing to put in your albums, but also this would be a great card just to send out as is. Now, to adhere this to the page, I'm going to be using some Score Pal tape. This is super strong. I'm adding 3 strips because I really don't want that card to pull away from the album page, because it'll be opened and closed quite a few times, I'm sure. Just going to make sure to position it straight onto the paper, which is always a little bit of a challenge for me. I often adhere things crooked onto things, but I think this time I was successful. I'm just going to press that down. And these are the ovals that I use, these oval dies from Whimsy to create those oval shapes. It's nice because there's a few different sizes in that pack. So this is my card done. I hope this first video inspires you to try adding something like this to your December daily album if you're creating one, or just to create a pretty card to send out in the mail to one of your loved ones. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. As well, please subscribe to my channel and hit that subscription bell, and that way you will be notified every time one of my Christmas series videos is posted. Here's a few other videos that you might be interested in. They're also in that Christmas theme. And until next time, have a great day.